It is no secret that martial arts as a whole, regardless of the discipline, are constantly evolving. If you were to take any system now, whether it was a sport-based or self-defense-based system, and you looked at that system now compared to what that system was when it first originated, there's a very good chance that they are almost unrecognizable. A big reason as to why those systems have changed over time is due to a concept called cross-training. Now for today's video, we are going to discuss cross-training and why I feel that as a martial artist, it is probably one of the best ways that you can evolve and improve overall as a martial artist. Whether you're the hobbyist or a competitor, if you're looking to grow your game, improve your skills, and just develop new techniques and new principles, cross-training is the way to go. Now, before we dive into the content for today, please make sure you have hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. We are currently on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and I would love to hit that as soon as possible. So show your support for the channel, hit the subscribe button, share the channel around with your friends, and let's get to today's topic. Now, for those that are not familiar with what cross-training is, it is basically the idea that you are training at a different school that is not your current school. Now, that may differ depending on what type of martial arts that you're doing. For instance, if you're doing more of a sport-based system such as jiu-jitsu, you may just cross-train by simply training in some of your affiliated gyms, or you may train at a completely different academy under a completely different team name. If you're more on the self-defense side and traditional martial arts side, again, you may stick to within that realm of your martial arts. For instance, if I'm doing Taekwondo, maybe I train at another Taekwondo school. Or you may take a different approach, and if I'm doing Taekwondo, maybe I go try a completely different discipline such as Krav Maga or JKD. Both, again, fall under that realm of cross-training because you are training somewhere different than your current location. Now, as I mentioned, cross-training, in my opinion, is the best way to improve overall as an individual, and is probably the best way to improve your school overall, and we're gonna get to the reasons why. If you're looking to cross-train, or if you're interested in cross-training, you have to be an open-minded individual. You have to be an open-minded martial artist. If you're closed-minded, that means that you truly believe that everything that you are either teaching or learning is the end-all be-all, or you believe that your system is the end-all be-all, meaning that you're not open to other insight, you're not open to other opinions, and it is pretty much your way or the highway. But back to the idea of cross-training and why it's so crucial for you to grow as a martial artist. Number one, you get different insight. When you work with different instructors, again, whether it's the same team, completely different discipline, doesn't matter. When you work with different instructors, you're getting different experiences. You may have an instructor that's more of a hobbyist compared to an instructor that's a world champ, that has competed at the highest levels, has traveled the world teaching seminars and competing across continents and countries and different places. They have a wealth of knowledge that they could share with you. Now, especially like when it comes to jiu-jitsu, once you get high enough in there, you all know the same basic movements. You all know the basic principles. So everybody can show you how to escape side control, for instance. But a world top tier competitor may have a little bit different insight or a different approach that could help your own game and simply just open your eyes to a completely different methodology or completely different mindset that you weren't really conscious of before, because maybe your instructor hasn't competed at that level, or maybe your instructor doesn't compete at all, and again, they're just kind of more of a hobbyist. They teach what they want to teach, and you move on from there. The same things with the self-defense school. You may get an instructor that's simply just been in law enforcement for a while, or you may get somebody that has extensive military background, has worked on high-end security jobs, has worked overseas, and has tons of real world experiences that they can bring to the table that really open your eyes to what practical, efficient self-defense is that is effective across all standards. Compared to someone that simply just came up in a system, has barely gone into a fight in their life, and they're just teaching nonsense. Now, I'm not saying that everyone's self-defense is nonsense, but there is a lot of bullshit out there. It's good sometimes to get different opinions and different insights, because then you can take those insights, you can bring it back, you can compare it with what you've already known, maybe you can formulate a different technique, and now you have a completely different way of doing something that you didn't think of before that may actually work better for you. But that wasn't made possible until you went out and explored and saw the different options and the different ways that people do something that still gets the same result. Number two, you get different training partners. Now, one thing that I find in particular, especially when it comes to jiu-jitsu, is I train with the same people on a regular basis. Yes, they can push me. Yes, we formulate different ideas. We play around with different techniques. We drill a lot. But at the end of the day, I find myself simply just going through the motion sometimes, and I'm not really critically or actively thinking because I'm already able to predict what that person's going to do because I've trained with them so often. I know what their motions are. I know what their gameplay is. So to in a sense, my body's kind of just on cruise control and I'm just going through the motions. When you train with someone that's completely different, that you either haven't worked with before or haven't worked with in a long time, you're going to have to approach those situations differently, which means your mind starts thinking differently. Your mind is more active and more aware of what's going on, and you're actually really putting your body and your mind to the test to see what does and what doesn't work. You really get an opportunity to test your techniques against someone completely different, and you really kind of get the competitive feel. Now, this is great if you are an athlete and you're looking to compete. Either you can use this as a great way to practice, especially as you start getting near to competitions, which is what I do. I start cross-training a little bit more because it puts me in that mindset. I get different people, which means I'm actively working harder, my mind's thinking harder, and I'm really figuring out what does and doesn't work. On the flip side, if you're a hobbyist, but you've always kind of, danced around the idea of competing, but you don't really want to do it, this is a great idea, because you know for a fact that if you train with someone that you've never trained with before, especially at a different gym, you're going to go hard. You're going to go harder than you go with your own training partners because you're not going to see them again. So you want to prove that, okay, my techniques are better than your techniques, so I'm going to push it as hard as I can, and I know you're going to push me as hard as you can. So essentially, you're still kind of getting that competitive feel. Either way, no matter how you cut it, you are training with someone different, so you're still getting different experiences and different mindsets. You all have the same goal. It doesn't matter the discipline. You're trying to submit them, you're trying to knock them out, you're trying to pass, you're trying to work self-defense. Whatever your goal is, you both have that same goal, but two completely different ways of getting there. And by training with someone else, you're going to be able to see hands-on how their approach works towards your approach. And then you're going to be able to see how your reactions work on their actions and how their reactions work on your actions. And it's a constant back and forth feeding system to where you're both actively learning and providing different information while also taking in information. And it's a two-way street when it comes to training with different people because you're both gonna learn. Then you have the opportunity to sit down and talk with them, say, hey, I noticed you did this during the round. Or hey, when we were doing this self-defense move, I noticed you did this. Why? And you get to start talking to each other. You get to start discussing those ideas. And as a result, again, you're gaining knowledge out of that. You're gaining insight, you're gaining different perspectives. And again, it may not all work. It may not all be something that you're interested in. Maybe you know some of the stuff, but if you can walk away with just one little bit of information that can completely change your mindset on something or open the door to different opportunities and different techniques, then that's a win-win. You get to have fun and you get to learn. Now, the biggest reason of why cross-training is so important, and it kind of just feeds off the first two reasons, is the fact that everyone involved gets to learn. Your entire academy, your entire team, and even possibly your instructors get to learn off of your cross-training. When you are, again, training with different instructors, you're gaining different insight, different approaches, different techniques. When you're training with different partners, you're getting different approaches, different techniques, different everything. So when you take that information back and then you teach it to your own teammates, or you train with them and they see how you're now moving based off of how you moved before, or you show your instructor and then all of a sudden that sparks their interest and now they start kind of thinking, you're pretty much just fueling that creative wheel and that creative flow because you brought something fresh into the picture. Now, again, it doesn't mean that your academy doesn't know what they're doing. It doesn't mean that your instructor isn't able to teach or anything. It's just the idea that you're bringing different approaches. Understand this, every instructor, including myself, has a way of doing things. You've been doing it all your life, especially if you've come up in the martial arts and you've been doing it for 10 plus years. You have a way of doing things. You've stuck to your system. Yes, maybe you've branched out a little bit, but you find what works for you, and then you try and feed that off to everybody else. But by bringing in different information, sometimes it changes your own approach, and you're like, oh wait, that didn't work before, or it didn't work as effectively, but now because of that little bit of information, now I can add a different technique or a different approach that now works for the vast majority. A great example of this is the fact that I came up in a Taekwondo system. It's been 20 plus years of my background. We were very heavily focused on self-defense compared to where most Taekwondo schools are a bit more sport-based. But we did not have a ground system, and the ground self-defense that we taught was bare minimal, and it sucked. Once I started training in jiu-jitsu and wrestling and got a little bit more hands-on with the grappling, I just understood how crazy the ground fighting world was, how crazy and fast things can happen down there, and I really started to understand what does and what doesn't work. So what did I do? I took those bits of information, I pulled what I found was useful, I discarded what was not and what wasn't really effective on the street. I applied it with principles that I had already learned for self-defense, and I was able to come up with multiple different types of approaches to common street fighting situations that revolve around the ground. And as a result, people are able to learn from it, people are able to do this stuff, and it's effective and it works for the vast majority. But none of that was made possible unless I had started cross-training. Now, you don't have to cross-train all the time. I know some people that literally cross-train on a regular basis. I personally, a couple times a month. Again, if I'm getting ready for a competition for jiu-jitsu, I'll start cross-training a little bit more. But when it comes to like self-defense and jiu-jitsu and boxing and whatever other systems I'm training in, every once in a while I like to jump into a different academy or work with different training partners, work with a different instructor, and just kind of keep my creative juices flowing. I don't ever want to get stagnant. I don't ever want to get to a point where I'm just kind of hitting a wall. I want to make sure that I'm always kind of veering off different roads, trying different things, but I still, again, come back to my basic fundamentals and I just extend on those continuously. Now, as I said, it's ever evolving. Martial arts is ever evolving because of the ability to share and spread information and allow that information to grow and nurture it with different instructors and different students. Now, some of you may ask when a good time to start cross training is. I recommend that you at least wait until you have the basics and the fundamentals down, because if you jump in too soon, your head's gonna be all over the place because you're getting mixed signals from different instructors. So get your fundamentals down. Then once you kind of get a grasp of that discipline and you have an idea of what's going on, then you can start slowly branching out and learning different things. It could be self-defense based, it could be sport based, but cross training still accomplishes the same thing. It feeds creativity, it feeds growth, and it allows you as an individual martial artist, it allows your academy or the academy you train at, your teammates, your students, your instructor, it allows everyone to grow as a result of your ability to step out of your comfort zone and train somewhere else. I will say that if you are doing self-defense like myself and you are more focused on self-defense, I highly recommend that you train in different disciplines rather than just different academies within the same discipline. Reason being is you are going to find the holes in the game. And again, when it comes to self-defense, it's real life. We're trying to keep people safe. We're trying to keep people alive. You have to train in different disciplines so that you understand the holes in the game, that you understand all the different approaches and ways that something could go wrong. Because again, as we know for self-defense, any specific situation could go a million different directions. So you want to make sure that you can cover as many of those actions and reactions as possible, but that's only made possible by cross-training in different systems with different ideas, different values, different techniques, different everything. So I highly recommend that you start cross-training. If you're a competitor or an athlete, I still recommend that you start cross-training, especially as you start getting closer to competitions. Yes, train with your team on a regular basis, drill with them, work with them, flow through different techniques, flow through the motions, but then cross-train, work with someone that you haven't worked with in a while, because you're gonna go harder, your mind's gonna work differently, and you're gonna be actively working on the techniques and really realizing what does and doesn't work, as I've said at the beginning. Martial arts is ever evolving, and it will continue to evolve as long as we continue to cross-train. The ability to share information online, the ability to train with different students and jump into different academies and work with different minds is going to allow for the longevity of martial arts as a whole. And yes, as a hobbyist, as a competitor, as a self-defense instructor, I want all of those things. I want the martial arts to continue to grow. I want different ideas to continue to blossom, different concepts to come out in place, different techniques to formulate. But all of that is made possible by people continuing to cross-train, by continuing to step out of your comfort zone, by being open-minded. Again, do not be a closed-minded individual or a closed-minded martial artist. You have to be open-minded. Doesn't mean you have to take in all the information, but be open to it. Listen to it. See how it works and try it out for yourself. Just pressure test it. If you don't like it, move on. But I guarantee you will find something new that you did not realize before, or that you just didn't think about before once you start cross-training. So get out there, train with different students, train with different academies, try different disciplines as a whole, and see how it improves your game. Again, whether you're an athlete or a self-defense instructor or just a hobbyist, try different things and just see what comes of it. So get out there, start cross-training. I highly recommend it. You will learn something, you will grow from it, and you will become a better martial artist because of it. I appreciate you hanging out for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, share it around with your friends. I would love to hear your opinions and insight on cross-training. What pros have you come across? Is there any negatives that you found through cross-training? Drop all that down below in the comments. And again, show your support to the channel, hit that subscribe button, because we are getting close to 1,000 subscribers, and I would love to continue to see the channel grow. So I appreciate all your support, and until next time, my friends, stay safe.